The chandeliers glittered above like 1,000 frozen stars, their lights spilling across the marbled hall where two powerful families gathered. Musicians played softly, nobles and businessmen mingled, and every pair of eyes turned toward the grand stage where two men stood at the altar. Aiden Vera's palms were damp as he clutched the wedding vows, though his heart beat with an odd mixture of hope and dread. He was 24, the younger son of the Vera family, renowned for their influence in finance. His marriage today was not born of love, but of strategy. Still, Aiden had dared to dream. Perhaps this union could become something real. At his side stood Cale Duran, heir of the formidable Duran conglomerate. Tall, broad-shouldered, with an aura as cold as a winter night, Cale didn't so much as glance at him. His jaw was sharp, his silver cufflinks gleamed under the light, and his dark eyes remained fixed on the officiant. To the crowd, they looked perfect together, a power couple sealed by prestige. But to Aiden, the distance was suffocating. Do you, Cale Duran, take Aiden Vera to be your lawful husband? I do, Cale replied, his voice steady but devoid of warmth. Aiden forced a smile when it was his turn, his voice trembling only slightly. I do. Eye applause followed. Champagne flutes clinked. Cameras flashed. The world saw a seamless union. Yet, when Kyle slipped the ring onto Aiden's finger, his touch was brief, his gaze already elsewhere. The kiss that should have sealed their marriage was reduced to a brush against Aiden's cheek, impersonal, almost insulting. While guests celebrated in drunken merriment, Aiden sat alone in the vast bridal suite, staring at the empty half of the bed. His husband had left for a late meeting, or so the butler explained. Aiden curled his fingers around the wedding band, heart aching with a loneliness sharper than he'd ever known. So this is how it will be, he thought bitterly. The world might call them husbands, but in truth, they were strangers bound by duty. Aiden had promised himself he would try to bridge the gap, try to warm Cale's frozen heart. But even on their wedding night, as he lay awake in silence, a quiet voice whispered inside him. Chapter 1. A House of Silence. The Duran estate was magnificent, a sprawling mansion of glass and steel perched above the city. It was said to be a symbol of progress, of unshakable strength. Yet for Aiden, it felt more like a gilded cage. The days after the wedding fell into a rhythm he had not expected. Cale rose before dawn, leaving for his company. He returned late at night, often long after Aiden had eaten dinner alone. They shared the same roof, the same marriage certificate, yet lived as if they belonged to separate worlds. The dining table was the loneliest place. Aiden would sit at the far end, staring at the untouched dishes prepared for Cale. Sometimes he waited. Sometimes he ate cold food by himself. Most times, the chair across from him remained empty. One morning, determined not to be ignored, Aiden waited until Kyle came down dressed in his suit, hair perfectly in place, tie knotted with military precision. Good morning, Aiden greeted, his smile soft but nervous. I had the chef prepare your favorite black coffee, lightly sweetened, and eggs the way you like. Kyle paused, sliding his watch onto his wrist. His eyes flickered to the table, then back to his phone. I don't eat breakfast. You used to, Aiden murmured, remembering what little research he had done into Cale's preferences before the wedding. Cale didn't answer. He simply picked up his briefcase. Impulsively, Aiden stood. Cale. The man stilled at the doorway but didn't turn. Are we? Aiden swallowed the lump in his throat. Are we really going to keep living like this? As strangers? Finally, Cale faced him. His gaze was cool, unreadable, as if Aiden's presence were an inconvenience. This marriage was never about love, Aiden. Don't expect something I can't give. The words pierced deeper than Aiden wanted to admit. His hands trembled against the edge of the dining table, nails biting into the polished wood. But we could try, he whispered. Cale's lips pressed into a thin line. Without another word, he turned and left, the echo of his footsteps fading down the hall. That night, Aiden lay in their massive bed alone again, staring at the ceiling. Every part of him wanted to believe Kale wasn't heartless, that somewhere beneath that wall of ice, there was a man who could be touched, who could feel. But as the days stretched into weeks of silence, Aiden's hope began to wither. And in that loneliness, a dangerous thought began to form in his heart. If this is what marriage is, maybe I should leave. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Dark. It had been 2 months since their wedding. The mansion, once full of curiosity and cautious hope, had become unbearably quiet. Aiden filled his days with books, piano practice, and conversations with servants who seemed kinder than his own husband. He attended family luncheons, smiled for photographs, and played the role of the perfect spouse. But the truth followed him like a shadow. KL never came home before midnight, and when he did, he often smelled faintly of cigarettes and perfume. The whispers began at a charity gala. Aiden had stood alone by the champagne fountain, polite smile plastered to his lips, when 2 women nearby forgot or didn't care that he could hear. They say Mr. Duran has been seeing someone from his company. A model, I think? Poor Aiden. Handsome boy. But I suppose Kale never wanted this marriage in the first place. Arrangements like these are nothing but contracts. He'll never win Kale's heart. The words burned. Aiden excused himself quickly, retreating to the balcony where the night air was cool and sharp. His chest felt tight, his throat dry. Is that why he comes home so late? When Kale finally returned that night, Aiden waited in the living room, determined not to run from the truth. Kale entered with his usual composed stride, loosening his tie as if Aiden were invisible. "You smell like perfume," Aiden said quietly. Kale froze for half a second, barely noticeable, but Aiden caught it. "It was a business dinner," he replied, tone flat, dismissive. Aiden stood, fists clenched at his sides. "Why do people whisper you already have someone else?" Kale's eyes sharpened, but his expression remained cold. "You shouldn't listen to gossip, and you shouldn't treat me like I don't exist." Aiden's voice cracked, anger spilling through his carefully built composure. "I'm your husband, Kale, not a ghost in your house." The silence that followed was deafening. Kale's gaze lingered on him for a long, unreadable moment, but no warmth, no reassurance came. That night, Aiden packed a suitcase. Not much, just enough for a short disappearance. He stared at the clothes folded neatly inside, heart pounding as his decision solidified. If he doesn't want me, then maybe it's time to stop humiliating myself. His hand shook as he zipped the bag. He was ready to leave. Chapter 3. Shattered Glass. The suitcase sat by the door, its silent presence heavier than any argument. Aiden had waited, heart trembling, for Kale to come home. He needed to say it to his face, "I'm leaving." But the night dragged on. 10 o'clock, 11, midnight. No footsteps, no sound of a car in the driveway. Finally, exhaustion pulled him under. Aiden drifted into a restless sleep on the couch, the suitcase still waiting like a witness. Kyle returned at 2 in the morning, shoulders stiff from endless meetings. The sight of the suitcase froze him where he stood. His gaze flickered to Aiden, curled up uncomfortably on the sofa, his cheeks still wet from dried tears. Something twisted sharply in Kale's chest, but he pushed it down. He told himself didn't matter. He climbed the stairs in silence. The accident came the next morning. Aiden had refused breakfast, determined to leave as soon as Kale was gone. He slipped out of the mansion quietly, suitcase in hand, and headed toward the car waiting outside. Rain had started to fall, slicking the driveway in silver. Aiden's driver rushed forward to open the door just as another vehicle sped recklessly around the bend. The world blurred, tires screeched. Aiden froze, suitcase tumbling from his grasp. The car swerved, too late. Glass shattered as it clipped the front of Duran Gates and spun, crashing only meters from where Aiden stood. The impact knocked him back, his wrist striking the pavement, pain shooting white hot through his arm. Aiden! The voice wasn't the driver's. Kale had seen everything from the balcony. By the time the staff rushed out, he was already there, pulling Aiden into his arms. His usually calm, composed face was pale with terror. "You're hurt, damn it. Why weren't you more careful?" His voice cracked, rough with panic. Aiden winced, clutching his wrist. I was just leaving." "Leaving?" Kale's grip tightened, anger and fear warring in his eyes. "Do you think you can just disappear? Do you think I'd let you?" Aiden blinked up at him, stunned. For the first time, Kyle wasn't cold. His hands trembled as they cupped Aiden's face, checking for injuries, his breath harsh and uneven. "You could have died," Kale whispered, almost to himself. "And I..." He broke off, his jaw clenched as if he'd swallowed something dangerous. It was the first crack in his wall of ice, and Aiden saw it. Chapter 4: Cracks in the Ice. The hospital smelled faintly of antiseptic and rain-soaked clothes. Aiden sat on the bed, wrist bandaged, while the doctor explained it was only a minor fracture. Nothing life-threatening, just weeks of healing. But KL never left his side. He stood by the bed with his arms crossed, trying to appear composed, but his sharp gaze tracked every move when Aiden shifted, when he winced, even when he looked away. "Stop staring," Aiden muttered, cheeks warm. "You almost got yourself killed," Kale replied, tone clipped. But there was no anger this time, only something raw, like fear refusing to fade. "I didn't," Aiden whispered, eyes lowering. "Not that it matters to you." The silence that followed was heavy. Kale's jaw flexed, as if he wanted to argue, but couldn't. Back at the mansion, Kale did something that startled the entire household. He canceled his meetings. For 3 days, he stayed home. He brought Aiden tea himself, though it was bitter the first time and too sweet the next. He carried pillows to the sofa so Aiden could rest comfortably. At dinner, he actually sat at the same table. The staff exchanged astonished glances, but no one dared to speak of it. Aiden, however, couldn't ignore it. One evening, as rain tapped softly against the windows, Kale appeared at his bedroom door with a tray. "I thought you might be hungry," Kale said. His voice was quieter than usual. Aiden blinked at the steaming bowl of soup. "You brought this?" Kale's ears reddened faintly. "Don't make a big deal out of it. Eat." Aiden laughed softly, the sound surprising even himself. "You're terrible at being kind, you know that?" Kyle shot him a look, but instead of coldness, there was something fragile, like he didn't quite know how to be anything else. Aiden reached for the spoon with his good hand, only for it to slip awkwardly. The utensil clattered onto the tray. Kale sighed and sat beside him. "You're hopeless." Then, carefully, he picked up the spoon, scooped up broth, and held it out. "Open your mouth." Aiden stared. "You're feeding me? If you'd rather starve, fine." But when Aiden leaned forward, lips brushing the edge of the spoon, Kale's breath caught almost imperceptibly. His eyes lingered a second too long on the way Aiden's lips closed around the warm liquid. The moment was charged, fragile, intimate in a way neither expected. "Thank you," Aiden said softly. Kale didn't answer, but his hand trembled faintly as he dipped the spoon again. For the first time, Aiden's heart dared to believe. Maybe Kale wasn't entirely unreachable. Maybe, beneath the ice, there was warmth waiting to be found. Chapter 5: A Night Without Walls. The rain had stopped, leaving the night air fresh and cool. Aiden sat by window, his wrists still bound in a light brace, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. The mansion was silent, but for once, he didn't feel alone. Kale knocked softly before entering, a tray of tea in his hands. It was awkwardly endearing, the air of a vast empire, personally carrying tea like a nervous schoolboy. "You don't have to keep doing this," Aiden said gently. "I can manage on my own." Kale set the tray down, his voice low. "I want to." The simplicity of the words disarmed, Aiden. He turned, searching Kale's face for the cold indifference he had grown used to, but it was gone. Its place was something unguarded. "Why now?" Aiden asked, his voice trembling. "Why only after I tried to leave?" Kale's throat worked as if the answer cost him something to say. "Because I was a coward." Aiden blinked. Kale stepped closer, the shadows of the room deepening around him. "I thought keeping my distance would protect me, that if I didn't let you in, I couldn't be hurt. But when I saw that car, when I thought I might lose you before I ever even tried." His voice cracked, sharp and ragged. "It terrified me." Aiden's breath caught. Kale reached out, hesitating only a moment before taking Aiden's hand, the uninjured one, into his own. His grip was strong, but trembling. "I don't want to lose you, Aiden. Not to an accident, not to rumors, not even to your own decision to walk away." His eyes burned with intensity. "I want you here, with me." The confession shattered something inside Aiden, all the walls he had built to protect himself from disappointment. His heart swelled with warmth and ache all at once. "You make it sound so easy," Aiden whispered, voice thick. Kale leaned closer, their foreheads brushing, his breath warm against Aiden's lips. "Nothing about this is easy, but I'd rather fight for you than live without you." The kiss was inevitable. Slow, searching, desperate in its honesty. Aiden melted into it, years of longing and weeks of loneliness spilling into that single moment. Kale's hand cradled his face, thumb stroking his cheek as if he were something fragile and irreplaceable. The kiss deepened, heat sparking between them, soft sighs turning into hunger. Kale's composure cracked entirely. He pressed Aiden back onto the bed with careful restraint, mindful of his wrist. Their lips never parted for long. Breaths mingling, hands exploring in hesitant, reverent touches. "Aiden!" Kale murmured against his throat, voice husky with desire and emotion. "Tell me to stop, and I will." Aiden's fingers curled into Kale's shirt, pulling him closer. "Don't stop." And for the first time since their marriage, they were not strangers bound by duty. They were husbands, lovers, two hearts colliding in the dark, choosing each other. And for the first time since their marriage, they were not strangers bound by duty. They were husbands, lovers, two hearts colliding in the dark, choosing each other. That night, the mansion was no longer silent. It echoed with whispers, soft gasps, and the sound of walls finally breaking. Epilogue: choosing each other 6. Months later, the Duran estate no longer felt like a cold cage. Laughter sometimes echoed in the halls now, and the dining table, once so empty, was always shared. Kyle had changed not overnight, not completely, but in the ways that mattered. He came home earlier, sometimes with fresh flowers tucked awkwardly behind his back, sometimes with Aiden's favorite pastries hidden in his briefcase. He still scowled if Aiden teased him, but his hands always reached out, pulling him close. This morning, Aiden sat at the long dining table, cradling a mug of tea with his healed wrist. The sun poured through the glass windows, painting his face in soft gold. KL entered in his suit, jacket draped over his arm. He paused, as he often did, simply to look at Aiden. "You're staring again," Aiden said, smiling into his cup. "Get used to it," Kale replied smoothly, bending to kiss him on the forehead. Aiden set the cup down and tugged lightly at his tie, pulling Kale closer until their lips met, slow, tender, but carrying the same heat as that first night they had truly chosen each other. "I thought you hated breakfast," Aiden teased when they parted. "I did," Kyle admitted, sitting beside him, "until I realized it tastes better when I'm not eating alone." Aiden's heart swelled. He reached across the table, intertwining their fingers. For so long, he had felt invisible, ignored in a marriage built on duty. But now, looking into Kale's softened eyes, he knew they had built something real, something worth fighting for. "I'm glad I didn't leave," Aiden whispered. Kale's grip tightened, his voice low. "I would never have let you." They kissed again, sunlight wrapping them in warmth. Two men who had once been strangers, now bound not by arrangement, but by love. And this time, the world could whisper all it wanted because Aiden knew Kale would always choose him.